could have died if I wanted to. Slipped over
Welcome
the
back in.
edge and drowned.
It's the Mark and Brian Radio program. Happy Thursday to you. We welcome in this lady, Catherine Cardinal. She's written a book, Men to Run From. There is a signing this coming Saturday, 4 p.m. at Book Soup in West Hollywood. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here, Catherine. She's a relationship coach, a movement expression therapist, anger management facilitator, creator of the Cardinal coaching techniques, and been featured on Cosmopolitan, Glamour, Red Book, Ladies Home Journal, and many others. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we get into the meat of the thing, what is a movement expression therapist?
That's a combination of like dance movement and mind-body integration.
I don't get it.
Come on down, I'll show you.
Catherine, the foreword written in your book is by one of my favorite comedians, and maybe not a household name, but I've enjoyed her for many years, Kathleen Madigan. And she writes in the foreword, while reading Men to Run From, I started recognizing all the types of men I dated, and I would yell out, damn, how did I miss that? I guess that's the benefit of Catherine's years of experience and her insight into relationships. She knows how to help you spot things, where things are headed early, and how to correct the course, or if needed, jump ship. Having read the book, I think I finally got it. Though the answer came to me in the form of an Irish nautical metaphor, and I love this. Before you learn how to spot a seaworthy vessel in port, better to learn how to spot a seaworthy vessel in port than to spend years bailing water from a sinking ship.
Gotta love that Kathleen.
Well, she's great, and also, I mean, she obviously highly respects you. What can women get from this book?
I wrote the book with women in mind, and believe it or not, men, and also teens, because this information is not given to us when we're younger. And it merely is a practical manual for recognizing red flag men, so that you can save time by learning what you're getting into and learn how to discern where you're going with this guy.
All right, so what are the red flag men then?
Well, there's several, and one of the ones I like to talk about, because in the book, I not only talk about the red flag aspect of the guy, but in the chapter, I also say, everyone's real complicated, and there also may be great things about this guy, and you may want to stay with him. So I also give very practical tips. And if you do want to stay with one of these guys, here's how to do it. So the one I use for an example is the guy called the microscope man. Now, here's the guy who is forever seeing that one piece of white lint on the black shirt of life. And under his scrutiny, if he's extremely critical and if he sees the glass as being half empty a lot, hey, this may be a guy to run from, because who can live with that kind of negativity every day? But on the other hand, these guys are like Eagle Scouts. They're prepared for everything. They're organized. I mean, there's nobody I would rather be with in an earthquake than with a microscope man. So what I have in each chapter, as I outline that guy, is here is who he is, what he does. Here are questions to assess how far into it are you, and is it really time to run? Or if you want to stay because he has a lot of great qualities, maybe he's a great dad, he loves his job, then here are things to do to bring out the best in him. So it's like a manual for recognizing, but it's also a workbook for working on your relationship.
Okay, characteristics of men to run from. It says here, how to spot a bad date.
A bad date? It's a guy who talks about himself all the time, doesn't ask you questions about yourself, and is absolutely in a kind of what I call the narcissistic bubble of I am the center of the world, and he's not concerned at all about what your needs are.
And what are some of the questions to ask yourself in order to tell if the date is right for you?
The first thing to do is, what I always tell women, because I do a lot of dating counseling, is when you're out with a guy, and this is so important, to be sure to ask for things that are congruent in your reality. So let's say you're at Starbucks having coffee, then you might want to ask the guy, hey, I forgot to get sugar. Oh, and see, would you mind getting me some sugar? And how a man responds to you asking him to do something will give you an idea of how he is listening to you. And, if you end up with somebody, the vows are for better, for worse, etc. Let's see if this guy can hear what you're asking for and follow through for you.
Especially on a first date, I guess every guy wants to think of himself as a good guy, and I certainly think I'm a good guy. Of course, I will get her some sugar. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even think twice about it.
You're not in my book. That's it.
Are there guys who would say no, get it yourself?
No, but they will do it, and then maybe they'll do it begrudgingly or come back and sit down and start talking about themselves again. In other words, she's giving him a little leeway that, hey, sometimes it has to be about me. But I also understand men really well, and I have a lot of compassion for them because a lot of times on the first date they're very nervous, and they're not in their best. So usually what I tell a woman, if it wasn't such a great first date, give the guy a second chance. Let him calm down a little bit and see, because sometimes they shine through on that second date, and then he might be somebody that you might be able to build something with.
What about dating and sex?
My rule on dating and sex is for women to go very slowly.
Ah.
Because, many reasons. Number one, men fall in lust immediately. I mean, men can just do that, and they fall in love over time. It takes them time. They fall in lust and like. And what I tell women is if you just hold out a little bit, you'll be able to see if the guy's able to segue from lust and like into something that could be more permanent. I mean, that's assuming a woman is looking for something permanent. If you're looking to just have some fun and a roll in the hay, then, hey, anything goes, do whatever you want. But if you're looking for that special partner or person to spend a long time with, it's better to wait and see what this guy's capable of doing.
Who is the wannabe?
The wannabe is the guy who, he has a script that's going to make him $1 million. And I say in the book, again, I always have a positive side is, hey, we're all wannabes. Mm-hmm. I want to be on the show. I want to write more books. We're all wannabeing to something. That's the nature of humanity, to always wanting that. But I'm talking about the guy, and he is the guy who's always talking about what he's going to do, but he has done little to develop his skills or do the work or be proactive to make it happen. So he's living in a dream bubble, and in that dream bubble, he is a legend in his own mind. Mm. So I say, woman, if you're with somebody like that, hey, that's okay, but watch his work ethic. How does he show up? What does he do every day to make his dream come true? Because he could be a total keeper then, because he's on his way to something.
Out of all the guys that you talk about in the book, the types of guys, who's the most dangerous?
There's two, but I want to say something first, if I may. Mm-hmm. I say right in the intro to the book that to men, I could have just as easily have written women to run from. And, if I get the big check, that's going to be my next book. So I want to really be clear that humans are humans, and we all have our stuff. Well,
in all honesty, I mean, you could have come off, and we've never met you or talked to you or seen anything of it. You could have come off like a real man-hater, and you're not. And that's I think, a very positive thing.
Thank you very much, because I adore them, and I will probably do that book for men next. And by the way, then I'll answer your question. I've had men come up to me from my book signings. They bought the book. They email me, oh, my God, I'm giving this to my daughter, and I'm giving it to my friends, my girl buddies, because they need to know, because they're dating these guys. But anyways, the most dangerous in the book, I really narrow it down to three. The first one would be the bully, because even if bullies aren't physically a problem, they usually have manipulative mental skills to manipulate a woman into all kinds of low self-esteem places.
Verbal abuse,
passive-aggressive behavior, and then the real bully who is just, capable of being verbally abusive and physically abusive. So that's one of my least favorites. Another one is the loose cannon, who's a version of the bully, but he's just more a rageaholic. He's addicted to getting angry, and he's usually a no-win situation. And he's always blaming something. It's never him. It's always the dog or the kids or whatever. And then the third one that I really say keep an eye out for is the salesman. And this is the guy who, at his least problem, he's just the guy who embellishes a bit because he has a low self-esteem. And this guy could be a worker. You could work it out with this guy. He could be a keeper. Like I say, there's a lot of things worse than a teller of white lies. He's just trying to boost himself up. But then we go down the meter to the downright con, who's asking you for, hey, invest in this scheme I have, you're going to make $1 million, and that level of a salesman would be someone to run from.
Catherine, I've always contended that a person, man or woman, with an ego problem, now when you say that, the accepted definition of that is a guy or a woman with a big ego, and I've always contended it's the opposite of that. A guy with an ego problem that it has to brag, has to be better than everything, or has to make up stories, has to be always the hero, is a guy with not. He doesn't have an ego.
You are 100% right, because it's a superiority complex hiding an inferiority complex. And that's why I tell women to take their time at the beginning, because sometimes it'll take a little bit of time for the mask and the persona to melt away, and then you start seeing what's underneath, and then you can make a clear and discerning decision about who you're with.
Well, the book is called Men to Run From. There is a signing Saturday, 4 o'clock at Book Soup in West Hollywood. Catherine, we thoroughly enjoyed talking with you.
Same here. Thanks, you guys.
We'll have you back with Women to Run From when you write that book. I was looking through this to see if I'm any. I think we all have. All the guys could look through this book and look at each kind of a guy, and we all might have a little bit of it of us in there.
Mm-hmm. I definitely dated one guy that she described, that big dreamer.